Sometimes you have to think for yourself. The very fact you've clicked on this video means you are probably smarter than the average drone in a mask, and you are definitely intellectually curious. Sometimes you have to do your own international comparisons to see what's really going on, because the dominant narrative is so powerful it tends to shut out all else. So let's look at a basket case. Belarus. Belarus is on the eastern border of Poland and the southern borders of Lithuania and Latvia. The president is Alexander Lukashenko, and he refused to impose an extreme lockdown. The Belarusians weren't forced to wear face masks, there were no strict curfews, social distancing was weak and hardly enforced. The Belarusian economy didn't crash because the government didn't close it down. Back in May, the media were filled with prophecies of doom if Belarus didn't climb aboard the paranoia train and make serfs of its own people. But they didn't. So, is everyone in Belarus dead? Well, no. Google says that 761 people have died from coronavirus and 74,500 were infected. That's about a 1% death rate. Now, Lukashenko isn't a democratic leader in the Western sense. There's a good chance he's been cheating in elections. Corruption is endemic, and that's not unusual for former Soviet satellites. So the figures are likely deliberate underestimates. However, we can reasonably conclude that the feared mass die-off just hasn't happened. There weren't bodies in the streets, hospitals and morgues weren't overwhelmed. If that had happened, we'd have seen mobile phone footage, and we didn't. How does that compare to the UK? Well, the UK had 378,000 cases as of today, with 41,000 deaths. Just as Belarus may have been understating COVID deaths, the UK is widely thought to have been not distinguishing between deaths from COVID and deaths with COVID. So UK figures are quite possibly a serious overestimate. Nonetheless, around 11% of UK cases have died. So it's not immediately clear from this what the lockdown and the face masks and all the rest of it has really achieved. Sure, it shattered freedom, given the government powers unimaginable only a few short months ago, and smashed the economy, jobs and businesses, but did it save any lives? Belarus had 1% of cases dying. The UK had 11%. Around 0.8% of the Belarusian people were infected. The UK figure was about 0.6%. So it's really hard to see any benefit at all from the freedom-crushing, economy-destroying measures. So, that being the case, there are only two options. First, our government are fools. You should never discount this possibility, but there may be more at stake here. The other option is that this is all deliberate. I'm hoping it's the former, because the latter is almost too chilling to contemplate. President Lukashenko said last month that the World Bank and the IMF offered him $940 million in the form of COVID relief aid. In exchange for the $940 million, the World Bank and the IMF demanded that the president impose a lockdown like the ones we've seen in the West. He, of course, declined. Incidentally, the IMF and the World Bank are now bailing out failing airlines with billions of dollars. And have you noticed how the airlines are now implementing very strict policies such as compulsory face masks on everyone, including small children? Is that a coincidence? All the world's governments are in serious debt. Almost all of them are relying on debt financing of one type or another. Many of the world's governments are now implementing crazy strict but socially and economically destructive policies. Is that a coincidence? Countries that didn't lock down, such as Belarus and Sweden, aren't basket cases. There aren't piles of corpses in the street. Yet we're supposed to believe that would happen if we threw our masks away. I hope this video has demonstrated that it's not about health, it's about control. This is now clear to anyone paying attention. This is why we must resist while we still can. So, no masks ever if you have an exemption. No to testing if you can legally decline, and no to fear and paranoia. This whole thing can only really be achieved with our consent. Let's not give consent to our own enslavement. Let's say no. If you like this, please like, recommend and subscribe.